And Dabo, you could call him Daboisms if you will now. Like he has this every year, he just can't be fucking normal about anything, and he has this quirky quotes that he comes out with. I think it was last year when he said, we've had the NIL for years here at Clemson, but it's God's name, image, and likeness, and it's just. I'm a Jesus guy myself. Be just a little normal about it. That's not even a clever quote. That doesn't make any sense, right? And then recently, this past week, he said, every player is technically a transfer. Obviously, he's been getting grilled about it. Like we talked about it last week. And so he's getting questioned about the fact that they're the only team that doesn't have transfers. And it's one of those things that, hey, you look around the world, the teams that are competing for championships, the ones that were in the playoffs last year, the ones that are at the top, even your Georgias who I don't think rely on the transfer portal or want to spend big NIL, and they actually can get away with spending less because it's the long money product. We send you to the NFL type thing. That's what Clemson wants to do, but even Georgia gets transfers. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you look around, and I think he's getting challenged. Why are you the only team that's not in the market for transfers, even though you're losing guys like Andrew Makuba to Texas and others? And he says, every player is technically a transfer. We just signed a whole class of guys transferring from high school. The problem is, buddy, you sat there and you thought about that all week.
Yeah, he was like, what am I going to hit him with?
Yeah, they're going to ask me about the transfers. Well, what's your dumb ass got to say about this? They're all transferring from high school. They're graduating high school and going to college. And it's just he's so out of touch. It's just classic, like I said last week, pride comes before the fall. He's stuck and stubborn in his ways with this transfer thing, acting like it's Satan himself. Even his old coach in Brent Venables, he's active in the transfer market. Yeah. He originally didn't want to be at Oklahoma. A lot of coaches, as we saw last year, the greatest coach of all time ended up retiring. Saban has a famous quote that Sark brings up all the time that he uses to his coaches, and it was that dinosaurs are extinct because they didn't adapt. If you can't adapt, you adapt or die, and that's his version of adapt or die. Sark brings it up all the time. Dabo is a human form of a dinosaur refusing to adapt. The whole world did it. Dozens of coaches didn't like it. They still don't like it. They're vocal about wanting changes and to progress in the rules and maybe contracts. If they're under contract, should players be under contract? Things like that. And I think over time that'll happen. But you can vocalize your displeasures with something while also adapting with the times and making sure you're at the forefront with the elite programs in college football if you want to stay that way.
Yeah, and I totally agree because, in the transfer portal, a school like Clemson, you have the resources, you have the backing, you also have the foundational of what you've done at Clemson, making them a national, how he always says, we're just little old Clemson. Like, that's kind of Dabo's mantra is and he's a very prideful person by nature, and I do commend him for that because he does stick to his guns. But also, as you're saying, it's like you have to adapt or die, especially now with the NIL. You have teams that weren't even good that now have the ability to pay players like a Missouri, like a North Carolina State in the ACC, teams that are actually able to, Louisville, teams that are actually able to spend money and go get some of the players that they not get just straight off of throwing bags. Yeah. Like now, yes, you can recruit. You could be like, yeah, this is our track record. We get you the NFL this way. We also win, things like that. But now it's like, okay, that all sounds good. Now how much am I getting to come here?
Exactly. And we talked about it last week, like even the SMUs of the world that now have hope. Texas Tech with their double legal investors that spend big time money on anything. The world of college football right now is constant chaos between the coaching carousel and the free agent market, and how those two intertwine with each other now. Of even your coaches that explode at your G5 programs or whatever, they're gone in a year. Yeah. Not that wasn't always the case, but even, if you win at a lesser, like say a Big 12 program or ACC program, you're going to be trying to go land at a program that is spending in the NIL and that does have the resources to compete in the modern era. And then you got Clemson and Dabo just acting like little old me over here, little miss me, Dabo, Swinney, and Clemson. We're just going to keep acting the way we acted in 2014 through 2018 while the world changes around us, and expect to continue to compete for championships because my morals are better than everybody else's morals, or whatever it is that he's going about. Dabo went from kind of being anticipated to potentially be the heir apparent of Nick Saban, whether he went and followed him up at his alma mater in Alabama or just stayed at Clemson and became the next Bama there at Clemson to, like I said, a dinosaur that looks like he's about ready to be extinct. I mean, Clemson, if it goes bad this year, and they still got a talented roster, but if it goes bad this year, and by bad, I don't mean winning 10 games. Even if you win 10 games and it looks exactly the same as the last 2 or 3 years, but you're getting whooped by the top teams in the conference or the top non-conference opponents that you play, and you seem to be outmatched, it's absolutely going to be time. Although the guy built Rome, if you will, there in Clemson, it was nothing prior to him. You know, we've seen it happen before. That this game, this world will humble you if you don't adjust and adapt to it. And like Saban, when he got tired of it, he retired. You know, I don't want to say it was completely subtle. It's not like nobody anticipated that coming when it did. But, you know, essentially, he still had some gas left in the tank. Alabama wasn't going anywhere. But when he looked up and realized, look, I'm tired of re-recruiting my roster every single year. I'm tired of dealing with the transaction market and the finances of this. I'm Nick Saban. I've put 1 million people in the NFL, won almost a dozen championships. What do you want me to do? He stopped, and he handed over the reins. He stepped down, and now he's going to try to help college football in other ways, speaking on these matters and doing everything he can to help the college coaching world. I think he'll excel at that just like he did in football. But Dabo Swinney's just being frustrating at this point. Whether you're a hater of Dabo Swinney or you love Clemson, whether you've been a fan of him because what he stands for his whole career, it doesn't matter at this point. It's just it's ignorant.
It's ignorant, and hopefully they do adjust because, as you're mentioning, you have more people in the ACC now that are players. You have the Miamis, you have the Florida States, and now you're bringing in SMUs. You have schools like Virginia Tech who have been good in the past that are, you know, kind of coming to resurgence. You have a North Carolina State, a Louisville, schools like that have NIL backing, and actually they've never been in that limelight, so they're going to really push hard to even make themselves players now in this 12-team playoff. So it's like you don't want to eliminate yourself and turn kids down and also be known as a school where it's like, oh, I don't even like, you're not there. Now he's so far behind too, like with not using the portal. Now if he tries to use it the next couple of years, the following, you know, people aren't even, the top players in the portal aren't even going to have Clemson on their radar because they're like, they don't take transfers. That's not what they do. They're not in the business of serving, you know, a transfer kid that maybe wants a fresh start or maybe a better opportunity for themselves, right? So, you know, he's already digging his own hole, and, you know, you've been kind of on the Clemson is done train for a while now. So. Since
he started that. I just say you can't. I'm not, dude, like, I'm a dumbass. I say that. I don't care. But, you know, I'm smart enough to realize, like, if you look around and all the other respected coaches in America are doing one thing, all the other programs that are succeeding at a high level that also recruit just as good, if not better than he does at the high school ranks, are taking the transfer portal very serious and making sure that they consistently have the resources and get around all the legal loopholes that you have to, and do everything that they do to make sure that they're active players in the transfer portal. And this one guy is saying he's not going to do it, and it's not transitioning to more conference championships. In fact, they haven't made it back, and they're not winning them anymore, and they're losing all their marquee matchups, and the quarterback looks like he's struggling to develop at the rate of other guys his age from his class and things like that. I mean, the writing is all on the wall. There's nothing more obvious in sports than the collapse of Clemson right now. And, you know, luckily I'm not a Clemson fan or anything, and I actually have a heart for teams like Florida State, but so I don't think anything's, you know, dying in college football with Clemson dying, and you got the blue bloods rising. A lot of this could be a good thing, but you're watching the meltdown of a great college football coach, and it's in spite of himself.
Yeah.